Coming to you from the all-new Live House in Hollywood, California.
Hi everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. We've got one of the most talented sectors in audio, plus an update on the virus. Finn the Mix Pup is in the house. He's got his cool cap on. My cap is courtesy of the Montreal Alouettes. Finn is going to go mix in the other room right now. Finn, good job, brother. On a very serious note, Dave and I are committed to having Pensado's Place being a trusted asset for you to navigate through this virus. Here's how you do it. Just check out our site, pensadosplace.tv. Go there regularly. We've added a page that covers resourcing in all 50 states in America, over 4 dozen relief funds. We've got support groups. We've got entities like Music Cares, Backline, Sound Royalties, Gospel Trust Fund, Blues Fund, and a whole bunch more. We're also adding international resources. For instance, the German Songwriting Association, GEMA, just came out with a relief fund, and there'll be more that's listed there. We will update it all the time. I personally have spoken with somebody at the very top of the Netflix food chain. They have started a $100 million initiative for their production crews, and I wanted to make sure their audio people were included. Shout outs and big ups to Ted Sarandos for such a boss move. That's incredible. SoundCloud is innovating for their community. They have an initiative called Keep the Music Going, and they've created a partnership with Twitch. We're in touch with an executive there named Tyler Moore, and we're going to try to get either Jeff Ponchek or Kerry Trainer, who are way up on their scale, CEO and a VP, to discuss what they're doing. Folks are stepping up, and they're stepping up because there have been casualties in our space. One of the early ones, Larry Edgeworth, was an NBC TV audio guy. He had underlying health conditions, but it didn't work out. A bounce DJ in New Orleans, DJ Black and Mild, he also passed. A famous saxophone player out of Africa who did Soul Makossa, he passed. Folks that have tested positive that you know of, Jackson Brown, Slim Thug, Lucien Grange, who's the chief of all of Universal Music. Here's the point. The virus does not discriminate. It doesn't recognize borders. It doesn't recognize race, gender, age, or whatever. The majority of people in New York that are being hit with this virus are under 40. Don't think it's just for elderly people. So the bottom line, you, me, we all could be affected. 3 simple rules to follow: wash your hands, don't touch your face, and social distance. It's that simple. Do me and Dave a favor. If you have friends or family who think this isn't serious or thinks it's a hoax, correct them. Be responsible. We're going to be responsible. You should be responsible too. So to stay up on the latest, sign up. That's Finn. He just adjusted something on the board. To stay up on the latest, sign up for our newsletter. Like, subscribe, and click notify. Stop by regularly, pensadosplace.tv, or hit us on our socials at Pensado's Place, at Herb Trolley, at Dave Pensado. Since everything has been so serious, we decided to institute something called the Ha-Ha of the Week. Here's the first one.
Because of coronavirus, you are going to be quarantined, but you have a choice. Do you A, quarantine with your wife and child, or B?
B.
We got a new piece from our buddy Mitch Gallagher. He's talking about parallel compression using buses. Here's some sound advice from our friends at Sweetwater.
Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater Sound Advice. This time out, let's talk about parallel compression. Now, traditionally, when you're using a compressor, the entire signal passes through it, it's compressed, and then that complete signal with all the compression is passed on to the next stage in the mixer. With parallel compression, you set up 2 paths. So your clean, dry signal goes through one, and your compressed signal goes through the other. This gives us some big advantages. Let's check it out. I've got several examples here in Pro Tools, so let's begin with a kick drum track. Now, as I mentioned, traditionally, you'd run the entire signal through a compressor and that signal would come back out. For example, I have an SSL X comp here. We can listen to the dry kick drum. We'll solo that. And here's the kick drum running through the X comp. That obviously makes a dramatic effect in the sound of the kick drum, and in fact it's too much. I'm over-compressing here for the sake of illustration. But we can use that over-compressed signal, blend it back in with the dry signal, and get some really nice effects. With the X-Comp, we can't do that with the compressor itself. There's no way to blend the two together. Some compressors, like the Waves H-Comp, have a blend control or a mix control. So we can go from 100% dry to 100% wet. And we can also mix in between and blend those together. But what if we want to use something like the X-Comp or hardware compressor that doesn't have a blend or mix control? That's where a parallel compression bus comes in. Let's take a look at how to set that up. So in this case with my kick drum, I've created a second aux track here that I'm calling Kick Crush. I've got another X-Comp on that, and I'm heavily squashing the signal. So if we listen just to the dry kick drum, or we can listen to the compressed track. We can also blend those together by mixing the two tracks at the same time. This allows us to mix exactly the blend of the compressed signal to the dry signal that we want. Allows us to beef up the kick drum and not lose the life of the dry track. We can do the same thing with snare drum. If we solo our snare, here's the dry snare. Now I'm feeding a second aux track here that has an 1176 style compressor on it, and I'm heavily squashing the snare drum. This beefs up the bottom end and adds some meat to the signal, and it brings up the detail of those ghost notes, but it's too heavily squashed to use in our track. By blending the two together, we can get the mix of exactly what we want. Just enough of the compressed track to bring up those ghost notes and add some beef. Let's try this with the direct bass guitar. Here's our dry direct bass guitar track. And here's a heavily squashed track. And now let's blend the two together. Finally, let's look at an electric guitar track. Now in this case, I had two microphones on the same cabinet, so I need to blend those two together before I can route them through the compressor. So I've got my two tracks here. One was recorded with a Telefunken M80 and the other with a Royer R121 ribbon microphone. The output from those two tracks is being sent to an aux bus here that has no processing on it. It's simultaneously being routed to a track through an 1176 style compressor. The compressor is being used to level out the signal, but also to bring up the attack a bit. And now we can blend those two together to get the sound that we want. You can hear in each of these cases that adding the characteristics of the heavily compressed signal along with the dry signal gives us a result that's better than either of those two by themselves. I hope you've enjoyed this look at parallel compression. It's a very useful tool, whether you're using a plug-in or hardware compressor that has a blend or a mix control, or you're creating your own parallel compression chain using aux tracks. It's something you're definitely going to want to add to your mixing toolbox. Thanks for joining me for Sweetwater Sound Advice. I'm Mitch Gallagher.
With all this going on, we wanted to make sure that before March gets away from us, March is Women's Month. And we have had the pleasure over the course of the show of meeting an array of talented ladies, studio presidents, producers, engineers, writers, artists, tech leaders, gamers, executives, you name it. It's just been amazing. Our show would not exist without the talented ladies of Pensado's Place. Felicia Romero, Tyler Scott, they kick butt each week. Crystal Schaefer and MI, who assist in making sure we get the show going. every single week. Our world is better because of these talented folks, and we wanted to remind you and give you some pearls of wisdom from an array of them. So enjoy the talented ladies of audio. What a pleasure. This is an opportunity for my whole career with Dave. I've heard about Sylvia Massy for years. We've ascertained we may have met but just didn't know, and that was before she became Sylvia Massy. Welcome to the desk. This has been a long time coming.
Thanks for having me.
It is such a pleasure. Okay, now quickly, the impetus behind Radiant Being, which I love. I'm a branding guy, so I love that.
Okay, well, it's been a while, but Dave and I worked together. I was his assistant at Larrabee, and I would sit in the back of the room. He was mixing some really important thing, obviously, but I would be in the back of the room reading a book. I think I was reading Shakti Gawan, the creative visualization, and Dave said, well, you're a radiant being. So that just kind of stuck, and I have business cards now that I use, and I've always used it for 22 years.
I love that.
Radiant Being.
I love
Let me
that.
correct something she said.
Did you try to get publishing from her on that?
No.
Okay, cool.
She said that she was my assistant. I was Sylvia's assistant.
Yeah.
Sylvia.
Oh, I can see that.
At that point in my career, she was twice as good as me. Like the next week, when she left me, she did Green Jelly, Jello, whichever you prefer, and Tool, and all these great records, and that shows her skill level. She made me look really good.
A Pensado Awards nominee.
But I'm a little conflicted to know that she was like sitting around reading when she's supposed to be working for me, though. I'm glad I got that admission on tape.
Did you write off the money you paid in your taxes?
No, you know what?
She multitasked.
Sylvia, I want to involve you in this because I'm gonna go a little bit different. But now you're so huge and your new place in Oregon. The people that assist us, like when you were assisting for me, is so important, Herb. I mean, I don't think any of us, from Manny to Jason to Sheps to anybody, CLA, it's a shame that they're called assistants because they're more partners, they're more equals. We get the glory and we get the spotlight, but they do so much of the heavy lifting and so much work. And one of the proud moments of our award show is when we gave the Air Award, and she's the reason I thought about that because she was just, I couldn't have accomplished half what I accomplished during my time working with her.
Now, what was your experience?
Oh,
the
wow.
other way?
He's just so giving. And I appreciate any person who's in between the speakers and to share with the assistant in the room, to show them techniques and how you lay out the console and what you're listening for.
I think I was bragging. I don't think it was actually, I think I was trying to impress you. I don't think it was actually coming from a good spot.
Nothing new there. We've turned that into a show, but
career.
Well, we did have a lot of fun, and I know there was a lot of talking going on, not so much working. I don't know how you mixed the Key Sweat or any of those projects that we worked on together.
I think you did it, and I came back sometime and it was done.
Well, my theory, since we've been around so long, is that Pensado's place really started there. Like, it was always a salon, it was always a conversation. You went there, you were going to do some musical work, but you were going to talk and do philosophy and theorize.
Right. Yeah.
And what I love about your journey, I've often said, I don't brag on Dave so much, and I'm always on the team about us not believing our own smoke, like just keep calm and keep doing what we're doing. But Dave has a knack for assistants that turn to superstars. I've just never seen, as somebody who watches talent and observes talent, the string, and it's continuing to this day, in my opinion, with our current folks. There's just so many of you guys. But what I love about your journey is Dave has kind of a specific thing that he began to be known for as a mixer. And as you went and stepped out in your journey, did you go towards your taste and with Tool and those kind of records?
Right.
Is that where you went? Is that what you were laying for to go do?
Well, I was really interested in performance, and so recording and putting together an environment that's conducive to the musician to really give us the best performance that they have.
Yeah.
And mixing's a whole other beast.
Yeah.
I love mixing too. But
producing.
it's producing and working directly one-on-one with the musician
That takes so
is
much
really
patience.
great.
Mixing I can be out in a day.
And in the rock space, you get
So much
performances. Like, you get guitar guys and drummer guys.
Oh,
and
there's
who are just
lots of
vocalists
personalities.
In your background, part of the psychological aspect of managing those personalities and getting more out of them and all that kind of stuff, obviously a part of any producer's job, right? Any extra thing that comes with doing it as a woman in the space, and having to command that respect, because that's a specific skill, ability.
Well, I've thought about that, and I think maybe because I'm a woman, I'm not as intimidating.
Yeah.
However, if I need to be, I can be.
I can see
and
that.
I'll kick
She
some
wouldn't be able to
ass.
shave her.
Oh, I can see that. I've known her for 7 minutes, and I went. In the first 2, I went, okay, I'm not messing with her
But
much.
I'm going to answer a little bit of Sylvia's question. Sylvia does it by just being really good. You never ever feel like when you're working with her that you're not working with the best, and she never has a moment where she doesn't have a plan. Sylvia's gift for knowing what it should sound like is so clear cut in her mind when she's working with a group that she projects that. If your surgeon comes in and is like, anybody see my scalpel?
Yeah, you got a problem.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
But Sylvia never allowed herself to be disrespected, and nobody ever thought to disrespect her because of the way she carried herself. She compensated for a lot of things by just being better than us. She was the best of the best. We never looked at Sylvia, and to this day you don't look at Sylvia as a female engineer. She's an engineer. And I think
She's a producer.
I appreciate that.
There's some cats like her and some of our other friends, Leslie Ann and some great engineers, and they all have one thing in common. They're the best of the best
really
of the
good.
best. I'm not saying that if you're not great, you shouldn't enter the profession as a woman, but Herb taught me something a long time ago that's just stuck with me for my entire life. And Herb always says, you teach people how to treat you. And man, that's the poster child for that right across from me right now.
Well, I think it's important for anybody, including women, to not be intimidated by the idea that I'm producing. The artist needs your help.
That's right.
Don't hold back, and they'll appreciate it.
I'll go even farther and say that it's a strength, that there is an intuition, there is some other gear that a different perspective brings to the process that an artist or somebody can benefit from.
That's right.
So instead of seeing it as a potential limitation, don't let hard heads get in your way. Think about it as, wait, I'm carrying something nobody else has, but you're going to have to do the grind. Like Dave said, you're going to have to be better. Like Sylvia said, you take what you take, and you grow, and then utilize that strength to become what you are instead of trying to emulate what a man would do, be everything that
Right.
you would be. Is that fair?
Do it the way that you want to do it.
Do you.
Do
Right?
you.
Do you. Our guest is co-creator of an absolute monster smash. I mean, it's completely amazing. These things happen culturally not very often. She's also the youngest person ever to be inducted into the Latin Songwriter Hall of Fame. It's an amazing thing. We are so pleased to welcome to the place the one, the only Erika Ender.
Thank you.
How are you?
So happy to
Nice.
be here. So happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're riding the wave. Is it amazing?
I am so happy and so grateful.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're both, talking about Fonzie and me,
Yeah.
as a songwriters of Despacito, we're so grateful because we never thought this would ever happen. I mean, not this far, not this high,
Yeah.
not this global. You know?
Because now, I mean, this is number one in an amazing number of countries, right? And it's been number one for a while.
Yeah.
And sometimes hits this size, they start to expand through the cultures, and they expand kind of vertically and horizontally. So they get different age ranges, and then they start to go to other formats, and you go, you can't plan that.
Never, ever.
Right.
You can't plan how you're going to touch someone else's heart or mind or body, you know? And I think that one of the main reasons, well, I don't think that, I feel that one of the main reasons I do music is because I want to connect with people. I don't do it because I want to be a millionaire or I want to be famous. For me, music is a mission. And you got to entertain people, you got to make people fall in love, you got to make people think, you know, like Pensado. This is the thinker's place.
Yeah.
So being able to connect this way, it's I don't have words for this.
But you know, what's interesting, and I think interesting to something you always talk about too, is, and this is instructive, I think, to our audience,
is that if you come from a passion place, because you're that way about mixes, when you talk about mixes, when you teach your assistants, if you're not sort of utilizing your taste and what's inside your heart and touching stuff, all the technical stuff doesn't matter. That's the stuff that breaks through. And it's not always the smartest, most proficient, most technical person that has the breakthrough, but it's almost always the person who has some passion. So tell the story of how it was written. It was almost just a pop through and
it was so
tell us.
organic.
Yeah.
Fonzie and I were friends. We've been friends for like 10 years or so. And we've written together for previous CDs of him.
Yeah.
And then he suddenly tells me, "Where are you?" Because I was telling you that off camera. I love people to ask me, "Where are you?" Because I love traveling, you know.
It's never what is
and
she
I have
doing,
like 3
it's
different,
where are you? Yeah.
So he goes, "Where are you?" And I said, "Here, Miami." And he goes, "Do you want to come over? Because I got this idea and I want to start writing for my new CD." So I say, "Okay, perfect." I went to his house around 2 p.m. And then we had a coffee, we started chatting, you know, putting everything, updating the stories. And then suddenly he tells me, "I have this idea of a title, Despacito, and I want something that could go like this. Despacito, vamos a hacerlo en una playa en Puerto Rico." He brings that to the table. Then we change a little bit that melody.
Puerto Rican, I forgot.
Yeah. And then I told him, "Why don't we put that at the end and we do something more, global, more universal for someone that is not Puerto Rican." But at the same time, I loved the idea. He had a very catchy melody also. And we said, "Okay, let's start that from scratch. Let's make this concept a bright thing, a very classy thing, because if you're going towards that side, more fusion, urban, and what's going on out there, sometimes the music could be so contagious, but then the lyrics might be aggressive for a lot of women, and there was a woman behind, so I was going to take care of, of my genre. And he's very respectful. He's very talented. He's a full package. He knows how to sing, how to dance, how to write, everything.
It just pissed me off. It's just the whole Latin lover thing, just because we can't come close.
It's worse than you even think.
I bet it is.
I mean, the man is like a chick magnet.
Oh man!
So we just started
Chica
out of
magnet.
that, and this happened. Like 3 to 4 hours later, I was out of the house.
Wow.
So,
but you knew it was good, though.
What?
You knew it was good.
I knew it was good because when you work almost every single day with music, you know the formula, but you don't sit down thinking about that formula.
Right.
Not me.
Right.
I think that when you have an authentic feeling and you let it flow, there's where magic starts.
And I think you're the type of artist and creative person who has to be free to express herself.
Completely.
If
I'm a free
try to
soul.
put you in a box, and we
I'm
talked
a free
about this.
spirit,
No question. Where did the Daddy Yankee part come in? Who did that? How'd that happen?
Yeah, after we finished this with his guitar.
So you wrote this whole thing just on guitar, no
just
beat,
guitar.
no nothing,
no beat, no nothing.
Wow.
We were thinking if this was more like a cumbia mixed with all this urban thing that's going on right now.
Right.
And then suddenly he went to the studio. That's his credit. He went to the studio. He looked for the producers and everything, and he started looking for that sound that he wanted. And suddenly he tells me, "You know what? I think that I have to collaborate with someone because there are a lot of collaborations nowadays."
Yes.
So he decided to call Daddy Yankee. We love what he does. He's in Spanish we say el papá de los pollitos.
I think I want to be that. I want to be that.
You're dressed like one of that.
I want it on review.
You know
Absolutely.
that? Pollito, chicken, gallina.
I'm in.
So Daddy Yankee did an amazing job.
Yeah.
He did the rap and the last post-chorus, the pasito, pasito, suavecito. That was genius.
Wow.
And that took the song to the next level also.
The 2 choruses.
So I think, we kept adding good things to the song, and then the producers were amazing. Andres Torres and Mauricio Rengifo, they're amazing.
Shout out to them.
It is very minimalist, but at the same time, it's groovy. I don't know. It's special.
You make an interesting point that we've talked about on the air a number of times. Maybe it's my belief. I think Dave believes this too. But it's harder to be simple than it is to be complicated. And the brilliance is in being simple. right?
And simplicity gives you that sense of good taste.
Yeah,
I think.
and I think it also lets more people in.
Yeah.
They don't have you can feel it instead of think about it.
And maybe more people can connect.
Yeah.
Because when you, for example, if I just give you a black dress, it can suit everyone. But if I give you too many colors, maybe, you know?
And I rock a black dress. I'm just telling you.
What I'm trying to tell is that you can fit more people.
That's
with
exactly
that.
right.
Yeah.
No, I agree completely. It's just the thing that's so amazing is that you had all this career before this too.
25 years of career, yeah.
When you think about that, because here's what people who haven't had or just getting into business understand. At the end of 10, 15 years, if you've had a good run, it can be over.
Yeah.
The idea that all of us sitting here have had such a long run and then are having hits at this level, we certainly feel blessed about the show.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing, and it opens up the door to so many other amazing things, right?
Yeah, of course.
What a gift. What an amazing gift.
I'm so happy. I'm so grateful. As I was telling you, the other day I was on the Billboard panel. And it was so funny because it was about the new generation songs. And my first Billboard hit was 20 years ago.
Some of the people weren't even barely born.
And it was so cool because I was like everyone else's mom.
Yeah, exactly. That's how
I'm 42 though,
the older
but
ones.
there were people like 20 something, and it was so funny because right now Despacito is like the biggest thing happening.
Huge.
And it's like, oh my God, thank you, because whenever you are connected to your mission, that's how I see it. Whenever you're authentic to what you do,
Yes.
and whenever you're humble enough to understand that everything that keeps going on always, that keeps changing, is exactly that.
Absolutely.
The ability to change, to open your mind, and to understand that there are codes that they keep changing with the new generations. So you never think that you've made it already. I never thought that I made it already. I've had like several points in my life, in my career, that have been like up there, not like this one, which has been global. But that's something that I've learned throughout my life and throughout my career. As long as you stay humble, as long as you try to keep your door open to
Don't stay humble. It's not true. Don't stay humble.
To always learn, you know, you'll always keep a career going on.
Yeah, I think that because we have these discussions with our team, and Dave and I have them privately. You have to always evolve.
Of course.
If you get comfortable in something, you're going to start to see the end of it.
Exactly.
And you've got to get in front of it and change it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
How did Bieber come into it?
How did Bieber?
Justin Bieber.
It was a surprise.
Ah.
Yeah. The thing is that he was on a tour, and I think he was in this nightclub in Bogota. That's what Fonsi told me. And suddenly the song started to play, and then people reacted to it. And he saw how people reacted, and he liked it. So his people called Fonsi's people, and they told us that he wanted to record it on a remix version. So Fonsi called me. Are you okay with that? I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you kidding me?
Go.
Of course, go ahead, because it was going to give us the song, another level.
Unbelievable.
Besides what Daddy Yankee brought and all of us.
Yeah.
So, and I really think that of course, that helped a lot to achieve that first
But at that
place
time,
at the Hot 100.
Didn't it, like in one hour, go to #1 in several countries in 1 hour?
Well,
when it
the
came
first
out?
when we launched it, the first time, 14 countries had it as a #1
in 1 hour.
It was like immediate.
Wow.
So Bieber was late to the party. Let's don't pretend like he helped sales, but he really did, though.
Of course.
Yeah, well, I think
took it up
we were
another
already
notch.
#3 globally.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
and with
his version.
Bieber, we got the #1.
I like the Spanish.
I thought he did it respectfully.
You know, that's the best part of it, because normally we look for the crossover singing in English. And we already had that version, that English version written.
Right.
And he decided he wanted to sing it, the majority of
his
it in
accent
Spanish.
is interesting. I like his accent.
Yeah.
No.
You said earlier, what did you say?
It's very sexy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
And the R sound is not as hard as normal. The English speakers always have that R sound.
Didn't go too far.
And he didn't sound like that.
Yeah, no, I thought he
That was real cool.
He did a good job,
Yeah.
And whomever coached him also.
Yeah, and I thought it was respectful.
Yeah,
of it. He found his way, but it was respectful.
Live, he tries to do it too live in Spanish.
It is amazing. Everybody's singing and dancing in Spanish. I mean, that's amazing.
There's an art form called executive producing, and we thought we would talk about it with a Grammy-nominated producer and songwriter. Please enjoy our conversation with Jenn Decilveo. Your interesting background, besides the songwriting and the producing and the piano playing, the beginning was a Jersey girl who worked in finance and was an athlete, correct?
That's correct.
Tell us how we got from that to what I assume was a passion laying in there somewhere.
Somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
And the talent.
Yeah, a little bit. I went to school for finance at Lehigh in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Played soccer, got my degree, went to go work at Deloitte, 2.5 years doing post-deal valuation, discounted cash flow models.
Fun stuff.
And was reading Deepak Chopra, wondering why I was doing what I was doing. And basically was depressed, so I quit and went to go work at a studio in Manhattan. And then I made the move to LA and basically bothered everyone and their mother to work with me, but only one person did. And that was my friend Honey, who was signed to Macy Gray. And we wrote songs together for like a whole summer, and I taught myself Logic, and that was basically how I got here.
Self-taught along all the way, correct?
Yeah.
Pretty much?
Yeah.
Either collaborating with people or learning yourself, just driven by your own interest and passion.
Yeah.
A lot of times, guests, we've had a number of guests who've done it that way, and some could say we did it that way in certain parts of it.
Yeah, I do say I did it that way.
But that often gets you closer in touch to your creativity because you're constantly in there, as opposed to having to have somebody else give you information that you have to sort through and see if it fits you or not. You're your own repository, right?
Yeah.
And you're digging in all the time. When did you get from, okay, I'm writing songs, I'm doing stuff, to I'm now working on things?
Wow, that's a great question. Because sometimes, like this morning, I woke up and I was like, am I doing anything with my life? I think it's like, but it's like a constant, I think we all as creatives wonder,
you have
are
to
we?
apply for a different job every damn day.
Yeah, like maybe I should quit and go work in finance again, maybe.
No,
I'm just
don't do
kidding.
that.
I think it was when this guy named Zach Katz ran, at the time, he was managing JR, wrote him. And Zach was like, we should do a publishing deal. And I said, publishing is the devil. No, you're taking all of my rights.
Right.
And he's like, you're insane. And I said, whatever. And then he went over to BMG and he said, come on, let's try it. And then I did a deal. And that's when, through BMG is how I met Andra, through this guy named Andrew Gould, who was working there at the time. And he connected me and Andra. He's like, I have this new artist. She's really great. And that's Andra. She's amazing. She's a light. It's truly a spirit, an angel. And he was like, you got to meet this girl, Andra. And I met her and we wrote 3 songs, one of which was Rise Up, and the other 2 the world hasn't heard and probably never will.
And you, in that collaboration, like with Rise Up, you co-wrote that and co-produced it?
Yes.
Got it.
So the way that happened, there's actually a section of the song that isn't in the final recording. There was a pre-chorus that we cut out. But Andra came to, at the time I had a home studio, which was a bedroom, converted into a studio, which was
a whole lot of bedroom studios out there.
Bedroom pop.
This would be a good time to ask you some questions about
well, let her answer the question I asked her.
Oh, no.
Which is, how did that come about? The co-production.
I'll forget.
Stop talking.
Yeah, no.
No, go ahead.
No, I'll stop everybody. So how did the co-production come about and co-write on Rise Up?
So Andra came to my house. She came in, she was wearing sweats, and ironically, I had just gotten a puppy, and my partner said, you're never around, you need to bring the dog back. So I brought the dog back after I had it for 24 hours. And by the way, in my mind, I had trained it, it loved me, we were talking, like it was perfect.
After a day?
I think it was listening to me. And I was a puppy, but I'm a dog whisperer, and I thought it was perfect. Anyway, brought the dog back. I was hysterical. And normally when I'm working with an artist, it's about them. Always. It's always about the artist. And Andrew came over and I just started crying. I started crying because of the dog. And she was like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, and I told her the story, and then we went in the back, then went to the studio, and we wrote 2 songs. One, which I think is called Favor, and then the other one was just me playing these 4 chords and her singing melodies. And the only lyrics that came out were "Rise Up" on the chorus. Rise up. And then she's like, "All right, gotta go, bye," and she left. And a couple months later, I was going through just some songs I had done, and I listened to it, and I said, this is pretty good. So I sent it to her and her manager, and I said, "Hey guys, I think there's something in this." And her manager wrote back and said, "Oh yeah, definitely." And fast forward to, I went to the label, I played it for Fenster at the time, who was her A&R, amazing. Yeah, you know Jeff. And he called Dan McCarroll straight away and was like, "We have a song." And he said, "Jen, you need to finish the lyrics ASAP." So Andrew and I got back together. We finished the lyrics. We cut out the pre. The song that you hear is pretty much the demo that existed initially. But then Adrian Gervitz, who I co-produced the song with, I sent him all the parts. He redid the vocals. The background arrangements that are in there were the original ones that Andrew and I did at my studio. And then they redid parts and kept parts, and that's basically how it happened.
And turned into what it is, which is
Yes.
super amazing. Were you there for when she did the vocal?
No.
Because it is one
Exceptional.
otherworldly, spiritual kind of thing.
See, but that's the thing about that song that's amazing. I think it's a beautiful, I mean, it's a great song, but I think the reason it reacted the way it did is because of the authenticity and the richness of her vocal.
No question. No question. Every now and then somebody comes along and they have a very big portfolio in their mind that they want to make happen and change the game. Our guest makes hits, writes hits, works with incredible people, is an entrepreneur. She is truly changing the game, and we are proud to have her. You're going to enjoy our conversation. Meet TRAKGIRL.
Hi.
Hey, finally.
The legend.
Oh,
Dave.
Shikari.
No. We are.
I've always wanted to be on here.
And we're happy to have you.
Yeah.
For sure.
There's so much to your story, and some of it is that there's this long line of incredible talents that emanate out of the Virginia area, right? I mean, Missy and Timberland and Pharrell and Serban and Teddy and now you. What is it about there?
Man, I can only dream of, being amongst those names anyway.
Oh, you're there.
But I moved to South Virginia around high school and just being in that space, I grew up listening to R&B, heavy R&B. So my mom put me onto a lot of 80s stuff, like Prince,
Michael Jackson,
Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson, and just living those sonically has always been my influence. But then you have Pharrell,
NERD,
yes, NERD, Chad Hugo. You can't forget Chad Hugo.
You can't forget Chad.
Missy Elliott, Timberland just have this unique sound, and it's right there in Virginia. So those guys were definitely my influences as far as my sound.
Did you start making music back then?
I started making music probably, so I've always been surrounded by music. My mom tried to get me to be classically trained and stuff. But I was a rebel back then and sticking with a teacher and just it takes a lot of discipline and stuff. So back then, I didn't really want to do, she had me play the flute, the piano, clarinet, and all this stuff, the violin. And,
oh my God, you were no.
But I appreciate it now though, because I understand the importance of, working with different instruments, recording different instruments, and elevating your sound. And there's nothing like live instruments. We definitely went off topic.
No, that's so
yeah. I'm just influenced by a lot of things, but Virginia definitely is the core, I think.
Why do all your songs sound so dark and so slow and so ethereal?
Yeah.
And real slow tempos, but I love it.
I love films. I love movie scores.
The cinematic too.
Yes.
I forgot that adjective.
I literally was going to say that your music feels cinematic.
Yeah, I just feel like music should move you. And I love like the process of creating a score too, like recording an orchestra, recording just, you know, bands and just instruments and just, you know, tweaking sounds and literally creating the mood. I don't know, I've always just been into love songs and films and movies and stories. So I feel like music you should be able to tell a story with music.
That's what I was going to say. What seems apparent both in what you've said, but also when you listen to it, is storytelling is so important to what you do. And also you like to take time creating.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I imagine you're not done with a record till it feels right.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
No, I feel like as a producer, it's never finished really. I don't know. It's like painting a picture. I like to take my time, like literally, I may take a day working on, let's say, strings or something, or take a day with just the drums, work on the chords with the piano for a day. And sometimes I have to sleep on it and come back to it and then continue to add those details.
But it never gets... Go ahead.
Yeah, so like, it might take, so for example, like with Overstimulated with Janae, it literally took like a year and a half to really complete the record.
Really?
Just because of timing.
I want to mix for this girl.
Janae likes to take her time, like with the writing, which I can really appreciate. She doesn't really rush or like to like move on labels time or something, you know? She generally just has to be in a place of clarity and in a place mentally for her to like get those lyrics out. So I really like working with artists like that. You know, it's just, I feel like you should take your time. You shouldn't rush.
You gotta be in your comfort space to create. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
When you take that kind of time, is your creativity constantly going so that you may come back the next day after sleeping on something and go, I need to change that now that I've listened? Or because you're taking time, are you more certain about where you're going?
I think so. Like, I have to take breaks. I have to listen to other things to see what's missing in a record. But I like to take my time. I can't really force it. And if I'm not inspired, sometimes I just take a break. Like, I don't like to force anything.
I'm not trying to be funny, but I think breaks are one of the most creative tools that's misunderstood. I don't know if that was a proper sentence, but it's one of the most misunderstood tools that a creative person has. I'm not talking about taking a break and going to Panama City or something. I'm talking about like just getting away for 5 minutes and get some fresh air, and you come back and look at a blue sky, and you.
No,
it
all
sounds
naps.
different.
Naps.
Well, I'm not
Take a
that
nap.
creative.
Okay, but I feel like you have to like refresh your ears.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, you do.
I don't know.
That's what breaks do.
And I think it's also, as an observer of creative people or creative in my own space, it's not just your ears. You have to refresh your brain.
Yes.
Too. Like it's one thing to get your ears back to being, but if your brain is tired, and I think that there's not enough discussion, which is what's interesting about what you do, with all the attention that you've gotten. I mean, you're in Forbes magazine and Complex and Fader and Billboard and all the other kinds of stuff. What's interesting is that you're not letting the process dominate you as much as you're managing the process to support what you want to hit.
Right.
That's a license that our audience needs to understand that you should be able to take, right?
Right.
Because when you're doing all the things that you're doing, balance becomes important, right?
Yes.
And how do you manage balance?
We were just talking about this, like literally how I separate from creating music and then wanting to, you know, do all these ventures and community-driven things. I don't think you can really find balance. You just have to like have that mindset to just do it and just prioritize, but also like know your goals and know what you want to do. So like in my heart, I know I have to help other girls. So like, it's just that drive for me to keep doing that. But then, you know, in the back of my brain, I have to finish the song. So I just have to do it, literally. I don't think we're ever gonna find like the solution of balance. It's just, you have to get things done. And, you know, my purpose is important to me. We were talking about this the other day, like, it's not just, it's like there's a financial barrier getting into the space. There's also like a mental barrier. You know, I really want to, you know, help women just be prepared for the sessions and know how to run a session. You know, preparation is key, but also just having that confidence. You know, you just work better having that self-esteem. So it's more to it. That you have the skill, teaching them more skills, but also just like prepping them mentally, emotionally, and just, you know, say that you're going to kill this session and just have that confidence. I want to just help, you know, in all aspects.
Sure.
Because I've seen a lot, and you know, I just want to share.
You know, these opportunities to talk to the audience, I actually think are good for women and men. If you were to give a piece of advice to our audience, what would it be?
Focus on your craft. Never stop learning. You know, just go through those motions and just know that you're going to get to where you want to get to. You just have to like keep the faith. And that might sound cliche, but like it means a lot. Like I had to take a risk to get to where I was, where I am. Excuse me. Just take more risks and don't be afraid. Like just do it.
That's what I was going to actually add on to what you said, because what you've defined over the time that we've been talking is a kind of fearlessness. If you had to move, if you had to take the shot, if you had to get to Timberland studio, if you had to move around and go to meetings, you didn't know what was going on, you've not allowed yourself to stay put as opposed to searching out and moving the ball forward, right?
I just feel it. I have to keep moving, keep learning, stay consistent. Like it just doesn't stop, you know? And I just want to take those opportunities and get to where I want to get to. So you have to take those risks and make those moves to do that.
Marcella, what's up, amiga?
Hey, amigo, amigos.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Man, we have gotten so many requests to have you on the show. You have no idea what a big fandom.
Yeah, for about a year and a half.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. From the time we started this, absolutely.
Yeah. So I got tired of writing all those requests, so I'm so glad you're on the show.
I'm really happy to be here. So.
Man, love the new Usher record. You're a star on that. I love your work with Britney, of course, Timbaland, who one of my favorites of all time, on every level, as a person, as a writer, as an artist. And Pink, I love the work you did on Pink. What am I leaving out? Madonna. Great records. You have a really width and breadth to your talent and your skills, and it's just a pleasure to have you on the show. I got so many questions. Let's just jump right in. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm excited.
Oh, really?
Yes, I am. And thank you for reminding me of my discography, because I always go blank. So now you don't have to ask me. Now it's out there.
You know what? I can't tell you what I've got to go home and work on. Well, I can tell you that one, but most of the time, I can't remember what I'm working on that day. It's just because, you think that's not what you're thinking about. You're thinking so concentrating.
It's so true.
Miss Lago, how'd you get named Lake in Spanish?
Well, it's not lake in Spanish. It actually comes from the word, the fast car, the Murcielago Lamborghini. It was a name that came when I first started in the business. I started working with Massy, and I wasn't the fastest at anything in the studio. I was really nervous. I was really bad at Pro Tools, and I got tired of her calling me a turtle, because that's what she would do, is taunt me and say, you're a turtle, you're a turtle. So I was working with my partner at the time, Damasio, and he was like, listen, you got to get your chops up. I want to make sure that you're on point, so the next time you get into that seat, you can really show her. So I really just started to just practice and practice and practice. So the next time I did have that opportunity, because I was the second in the room, I wasn't the primary engineer when I first started. So it was one of those things where
you made sure you were ready.
I was ready, right? When she actually had an engineer working with her at the time, and one day he was late, and when Missy's ready, she's ready to go. So she was like, "Let's go," and I was like, "Here we go." So things went from it was black and white. I went from really slow to really fast. So
you must have done a good job, because the reputation that you have in the industry is that you beat the crap out of the keyboard. You hit the mouse hard and you move like a Lamborghini. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, I'm very passionate. I am, and I think that even with my mixes, like I'm very aggressive how I mix.
Yes, you are. Yes,
so,
you are.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
When the Paul Tingen article, who I love, Paul, in Sound on Sound, you mentioned that that you like to take the sounds and make them work together. It's easier said than done. Is there a certain philosophy about how you combine sounds that you can impart to us, or is it just something you feel and do at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, for me, engineering, it's not, there's technical that's involved with it, but it's a very creative flow for me. I think I would drive myself nuts thinking numbers, thinking frequencies. I mean, all that does take a part in it, but for me, it's really about accentuating the sounds and making sure everything, it's like, when singers sing their harmonies, you need to make sure that they're not doing a harmony that's going to rub up against another. And I think sound is the same exact way.
Good way to put it.
Yeah, I worked with Danger, and he's very synth driven. He does, he works with a lot of synth. So with his mixes, to this day, even though I've been working with him for many years, it's very challenging because you have to make all these synths, just make sense and just be one marriage and it not sound like just razors, pretty much, and it just has to be, a beautiful flow. So
when you work with Timbaland, he asks the impossible. He wants to hear all the music and all the vocals loud.
Oh yeah,
which is really hard to do at the same time. But on The Way I Are, you did it. That's a great mix, by the way.
Thank you.
The drums sound almost dance inspired. I mean, they're really, really well crafted. I know you did that a minute ago, and sometimes it's hard for us to remember.
I would love to just kind of walk you through that whole moment because, to be honest, it was like, it's really funny. So The Way I Are was a record that Tim was doing for the Shock Value 1 album, and the first time I heard it, I just wanted my hands on it. I mean, I asked him, like, I really want a shot. I want a shot at this, and I wouldn't say I grew up with dance music. I definitely loved influences of it. Very young, I loved what they call freestyle music. But I was into the dance scene very early on before it became the mainstream format that it is today. And so when he created that song, I was like, wow, like he's going there because it hasn't been done yet by an urban, affiliate. So I really wanted to do it. And with that particular mix, I actually got the opportunity. I mixed it at Pacifique Studios in the Valley, and he, for the first time, allowed me to have my own space. He did not come in during the mix. So basically, Tim's how he likes to work is I'll mix the record, and then he kind of comes in and just smashes everything to like +10, and then it's just like, okay, now how do I come back from this, And it's just a constant challenge. So with this one, I had full advantage where it was me by myself in this studio, literally in the dark, and I just got lost in that moment, in that zone. And I had been to Ibiza before, before it really is the mainstream island to go to today, and I just remember, for me, when I first heard The Way I Are, it reminded me of that time where I was on the beach partying at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
The planes coming in.
Yeah, the planes coming in and everybody's cheering because more people are coming to the island. It was amazing. So I really wanted to catch that moment, while I was mixing the record. So and this was the first and only time that has ever happened to me. And Tim will vouch for this, but when he came in to listen to the mix, he sat in the back of the room Tim, everybody that knows Tim, he's very expressionless. He's just like, and he was listening, and he was listening, and he's like, I don't got to do anything.
Wow. That's unusual.
I mean, that's amazing.
That's very unusual.
And yeah, I mean, I was the one like, whoa, wow. I shocked myself.
You put a lot of your personality into that mix. He gave you the freedom because Tim's that confident too. A big chunk of the intro was something that you.
Yeah, well, the intro was inspired by the planes flying into Ibiza. So that was the moment where that I created this sound, and I put it in the beginning, and I had a demo come in, So that state of emergency is him, and I just pitched him down to make it sound the way that it did, and that's just that moment that I wanted to catch.
I know a little bit about I know a lot about you, but I know a little bit about the process that you use when you first sit down and decide to start a mix. I think we're very similar. I can't mix unless it's organized in such a way that is visually appealing to me on the Pro Tools screen. If I've got stuff scattered, I can't concentrate. You like your, I like my vocals first. You like your drums first.
Yes.
And then vocals.
Well, I like all my music up top of the session. I'm starting with the drums, and it's definitely going to start from the kick, snare, you know, hi-hat, just sort of like how you would lay it out on the board if you were going to record drums. But yeah, and then I like the order of the song, more like the leads, and then the backgrounds, and then the pre-hook, if there's one, chorus, bridge, on out.
And another thing that I was impressed to find out about you that I didn't know was, I've said on the show a few times how important the rough mix is, but you like to kind of start from a quick, let's don't call it a rough mix, but a quick mix to kind of learn the song, see what you're working with. You like to do that first, and then from that point, give me the Reader's Digest outline of how you proceed through a song. I mean, then after you do that, what do you start with?
Well, basically, when I first started mix, I like to, if I'm not familiar with the song, I've been mixing a lot, I'm not really recording the records that I'm mixing now, so a lot I like to sit, I might spend a good 30 minutes just listening to the song as in its raw, as the session opened. From there, I'll start laying everything out, and I'll just kind of play around and just, no EQs, it's more just of a level thing. And then from there, for the most part, I'm going to say now, for the most part, about 90% of the time, I'm always going to start with vocals. Why I always start with vocals is because I want the freshest ears possible for that. And then I kind of, take a break or whatnot, and then I get into the music. I think the music for me is, I wouldn't say easier, but it's fun. Mm-hmm. It's fun. And vocals can be challenging, especially if you didn't record them and you don't know where they're coming from. So you got to spend a lot of time with them, and it can get really tedious. By the time you realize you're done with just vocals, like 4 or 5 hours went by, and it's like,
and that's if they're recorded well.
Exactly. Yeah. That's if they're recorded well. That's the challenge of it. So, even when I got the job at the Hit Factory, I remember, starting there, and there was no females on the assisting side, on the engineering side, when I would go into sessions, and even as the GAing or internships.
Our buddy, your good friend Demo, gave you a bit of a hard time too,
Demo
didn't he?
was definitely, my goodness, that was like hazing. I was really that was crazy.
Checking you out, make sure you were the real thing.
He really was, and to this day, I will always be thankful for him, because if it, whatever he felt like he needed to put me through to just prove to, he wanted to make sure.
Prove to yourself?
Yeah, and prove to myself. Then it really, he did not let it come easy, and actually nobody really did, and I didn't want it, and that was the other thing. I did not want it easy.
One, you got to have your chops.
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 And you got to develop a tough skin.
You got to. You got to. It was definitely a lot of, I can't say it came easy. I definitely have moments of, I don't know if I can do this. Right. I definitely cried. There was I missed a lot of moments. Important moments in my family lives, birthdays, anniversaries, Christmases. Yeah. There was a moment that I worked with Massy on Christmas. I didn't even see it. But definitely, because I was a woman, I felt like I had a lot more to prove. And even today, I'm very blessed, and I've had a great journey, and I think I will never allow myself to sit and always constantly be reminded on all these great records I worked on, because for me, it's all about just constantly growing. Keep it, and I think women definitely need to understand that it's will be a challenge. It's not about a pretty face. If you are beautiful, great. If you're not, it doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, it's about the skills that you hone and what you can bring to the table. And I think that's where my success came from.
So in case you're wondering what distaff means, one of the meanings is of or pertaining to women. And this is a super talented audio lady. Her name's Amanda Davis. She does front of house for Janelle Monáe. We talked to her a little bit ago. Enjoy this conversation. Hey,
Amanda.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
So, how many years with Janelle?
It'll be 5 in October.
No joke.
Yeah.
All over the world, all over the place.
Literally, I've been to every continent but Africa.
Is that right?
And Antarctica, but nobody wants to go there.
Did you have front of house experience before her? I mean, because she hired you or somebody recommended you or something.
Yeah,
Tell us the story.
My story is I was on a cruise ship as an audio tech before Janelle, and it was 2 weeks before I was supposed to go for my second contract. And at the time, her production manager, he's still her production manager and tour manager, Jeff Coran, was a good friend of mine. We went to high school together. And she went to her team and said, there has to be a female that does front of house. I need a female on my crew. Y'all find me her. And ironically, I had made plans to talk to Jeff on how to break into touring.
Wow.
And he called me first with that information. It was like, send me your resumes. I'm like, resume sent before I even hang up the phone.
Right.
And that's how it happened.
Did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say what's interesting about what you just described are 2 points of view. One, you're on a cruise ship, so you're finding a place to work and hone your craft, which is what a lot of people understand. You don't go to school or do whatever you do and then go to the top. You work your way through.
It was 4 years.
And then you were ready when the opportunity came up.
Correct.
Right. Those are 2 points that don't you think that's important for our audience?
Yeah, you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
People always say it's who you know, but it's on you to stay there. It's who you know to get your foot in the door, but it's on you to keep yourself in the building. So yeah, I prepare myself because on the cruise ship, you're the only audio technician.
So you had it all.
Yeah.
Live bands mostly?
Yes, it was a 10-piece band on the ship I was on.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was horns, drums, guitar, in a pit for every show.
So you're miking that stuff, mixing the stuff, the whole number.
Describe life on tour. It's brutal for a front of house engineer. Brutal.
It can be.
You have to get there before everybody. You leave after everybody. You get off a plane. Your ears are popping. You go straight to the venue. It's horrible.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I try not to fly a day of show. If I absolutely have to, then I just
give me a
have to.
typical day.
Well, on tour, you load in, which depends on the time, but it could be from 10 a.m. or 12. You load in. So load in, you allot at least 4 to 5 hours just to load in everything, place everything on the
You're
stage.
there to inspect the stuff and see what you've got to work with?
Well, on tour, you're traveling with everything except for PA for this level of touring that I do.
Right.
We travel with everything, whole audio package, back line, everything.
So that comes in through the door.
We come in, we bring it in, build stage, mic everything up, pin the stage. I listen to the room and tune the room to how I need it to sound, and then we do a sound check for a couple hours.
And you tune the room using software.
I play songs from Spotify. I forget the website, but I found a list of great songs to tune a room to. And then I also just songs that I know what they're supposed to sound like, and depending on what artist I'm working with. So I wouldn't tune the room the same as I would for Janelle than when I'm with Tegan and Sarah.
Right.
You don't use that old school way? You just turn the volume of the PA up? Don't laugh.
Is that the old school way?
Yeah, that's what I used to do when I did live sound. You turn the volume up. The feedback that starts is a frequency that's bad, so you pull that down, then you push the PA up more, cure that feedback. When you get 2 or 3 feedbacks, you just quit, and that's just your tuning.
I do that once I do tune my room, like the PA, how it needed to sound. I'll have the monitor engineer come and walk the stage with the mic, the main mic. And because especially with Janelle, she's all over the stage. So I need to make sure if she gets in front of the PA, it's not going to ring back. So yeah, just let it ring out and pull out the frequencies.
Do you ever play venues? This used to happen to me, where I was the opening act and the main act would sabotage me.
I don't do that to people. No.
Have you had it done to you?
No.
Wow.
Things
Different
change.
world, I guess. It was cutthroat in my time.
Is there a danger with technology that a front of house person can get just comfortable depending on the technology and take themselves out of it? See, I like what you said earlier is that you want to hear the room and you know when certain songs sound correct in the room. You're engaging yourself in it instead of letting ones and twos and digital stuff tell you information. You have to stay involved personally a little bit.
Yeah, have to take ownership of the show and then your mix. Because I like to think of myself as, say it's a 9-piece band, I'm the 10th member. Because everything, it's my job to complete everything and bring it all together, like conductor. Or, you know, like you have to make sure that you're engaged in that sense so you don't like disconnect, because the audience just, they're there to like have a party and, you know, but if it doesn't sound right, or if they can't hear the vocalist or anything else, then that's on me. And then you're diminishing their experience.
The audio business and the music business, good, bad, or indifferent, is male dominated, and certainly the touring business is.
Yes.
There are things you learn, things that what's it like for a female in that kind of male dominated business? What do you learn? How does somebody learning or wanting to be in it, should they be aware of anything?
They should. It's gotten better. It really has. Even in the short time I've been with Janelle, I would walk in a venue and I've walked in with the rest of the crew and the locals are like, "Oh, where's your sound guy?"
Right.
And it's like,
right. They're like, huh?
But even with that, it's, you know, with live sound and with concert production, you've advanced the show. So you've been talking to these people for weeks and months in advance.
Gotcha.
So for me to walk in and you still say, "Where's your sound guy?"
Right.
We've been communicating, you know, like that's just think.
Right. Unless there's a guy named Amanda.
Right, exactly.
Right.
You laugh like Mary J. Blige.
Do I?
Yeah. That's cool.
That's a first.
That's cool.
Now, one of the other discussions we had when we first met, which we'll get to in a second, was you'd much rather do front of house than mix monitors.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And that's because artists can be so demanding.
I don't want to deal with all that.
Yeah, all that. You don't need all that. Turn me up.
No. And then too, mainly, I feel like at front of house you can be more creative. In the very essence of the word create. You in monitors you have to be creative, but creative in figuring out how to appease each individual on the stage, right? Yeah. But at front of house you can be creative. Like I do a lot of delay throws and stuff like that. But in monitor world you gotta
can't do that. With credits like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Chef's Table on Netflix, NASA's Cassini project, and on and on and on, Sarah Schachner is on fire. We are thrilled that she even knows who we are, and we're even more thrilled to have her here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Good. We've had some folks on from film and television before because we see audio as this big inclusive thing. What's fascinating about you, for me in particular, is I'm a first-person shooter guy. So Call of Duty, I've played all of them and so on and so forth. And I was so familiar with the work that you had done on Call of Duty. One of the signatures that's so interesting about what you do is there seems to be Sarah's personality in what you do. Is that a plan? Is that something that they give you leeway to do? Because there's an emotional kind of scope and scale in the music that you make.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. That's definitely a goal for me to put myself into what I'm doing, not just satisfy what the game needs, but also put myself into it. And the game projects they give me a lot of freedom to do that. So that's
amazing.
One of the reasons why I love working on them.
Because I was telling the team, if you go through the end, I go to lots of movies, and if you go through the end credits of a game, it's about 45 minutes.
Oh my God, so many people.
And it's unbelievable the amount of people.
Yeah.
So the idea that they would allow you leeway to do what you need to do with such, and it's so compartmentalized. There's ambient music and combat and chapters and storyline and all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be unique inside all of that and find the elements. Is that
definitely? Yeah. You're not just writing whatever you want, like 2 hours of music, here it is, do what you want with it. It's all broken out into very specific technical assets that will be going into the game.
Mm.
So yeah, it's very detail heavy.
Are you working from a storyboard and video, or how do you know where you're going?
Well, they do give some kind of like what we're seeing here. It kind of looks like you're in it right now, looking at
right,
you.
Exactly.
Yeah, they'll give rough gameplay videos in the beginning, just so you can kind of get a feel for like, okay, this mission has this type of pacing, but you're not scoring sync points like you would in a film, and you're not really scoring under dialogue. So as long as you know what the goal is that you're achieving with the music, what the different energy levels you're going to need to cover, you have a lot of freedom of how you execute that and how you do that.
Do you do multiple pieces of music for the same scene? And like a movie, you would have one score for a particular moment, but in a game, you have to have multiple pieces for the same scene, right?
Right.
How many usually?
It's not as much that I'm writing a bunch of different pieces for one scene. It's that it's a different approach to writing. It's thinking of it a little more modular. Like when I'm writing a piece, sometimes I'll have to put extra layers, extra instruments doing something that maybe musically I would not want to be there just for how I would want the music to sound. But that way the editors can much more easily take it apart and then create different variations from the original piece that you wrote.
Because oftentimes you're creating for situation, not for outcome.
Exactly,
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know as a player, what I do can change.
Right, it can change at any minute.
Any second.
So it's like, yeah, if you're playing and you're starting at a mission, you've crossed a threshold where then those enemies are going to start coming at you. In the system, it triggers something that's like, oh, now we need to bring in this second part of the piece or this layer that's going to play indefinitely.
Fascinating.
Would you say that a lot of the music that you contribute would be categorized as atmospheric?
A lot of it, yeah.
Is that something you enjoy?
Yeah, because it's creating environments, like nuanced emotional environments that can kind of subtly just like permeate the background of what's going on. Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Would an atmosphere, and I don't know anything about games, so would a piece that's called atmospheric in a game, would that be the same thing as a pad in a regular song, so to speak?
It could be. I think when I think of atmospheric, I would think something that's not aggressive, not in your face, a little more sits in the background, a bed of something, ambient.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, but then that changes if you have to do combat.
Right. That's not atmospheric
that's
at all.
Like in your
yeah,
movie.
and that's like most of in this type of game and a lot of the action adventure games, it's a lot of combat music.
Yeah. What's interesting about your scores is that I found that you would have combat elements in that would sometimes switch, like drum hits would feel like shots sometimes, but they would switch, or there'd be a sound or a pad that sort of felt like helicopter rotors, but they were a musical element. And then your emotional landscape stuff was always sort of creative things I couldn't quite identify. And I know might be some Trent Reznor feelings in there, but also you would utilize different things for percussions, almost like a Foley approach to getting sound. Is that correct?
I do a lot of that. I like found sounds. I really don't like working in the box or with MIDI. So I'm kind of always after capturing a performance first and foremost, and then working with that audio. And on Call of Duty, I did a bunch of experimental sessions. I feel so lucky getting to work on these projects because, you know, the budgets are pretty huge.
They're crazy.
Yeah, they're pretty crazy. Like, so there is money to do kind of experimental, maybe some avant-garde type sessions where it's an exploration. And that's my favorite thing because I hate doing mock-ups that are then like, oh, the sound's going to be replaced later. And I'm like, well, that sound made me make decisions about other sounds.
Yeah.
So like, I hate that. I want to have as much of the raw, final sounds to work with.
Well, what's so cool also about what you do is because you're also such a good editor, you'd rather create your own Sarah sound.
Yeah.
Right. And put it in and have it be not only inspiration, but also tell the scene. Because lots of games have period.
Right.
And you can have freedom. Like you can create Sarah, Philly, Egyptian feel or whatever the case may be, and take the player on a different kind of journey. But you find a way to, like in Modern Warfare, we were talking about Farrah before the show started and just the story arc. But when it was her or throwbacks to her and her brother and they were growing up, I felt the period of time in the music, even though I couldn't quite identify it, it was enough that it authenticated it for me. I didn't need to say, oh, this was, the Circulian War, 1824. Right. It just needed to feel like Sarah.
Hints at it.
Yeah. So is that by design?
I mean, I'm happy to hear that comes across because that is definitely a goal for me. And for getting back to Farrah, that was really fun because I got to record some vocalists for that. And I don't often work with vocalists. And this Rafe Perlman, fantastic vocalist. He sings kind of Middle Eastern. He was like pulling from Aramaic, but it was his own thing. And so he was improvising, and then we had him going through a tape delay, like an analog tape echo. And so then I think in that mission that you're talking about, there's all these weird tape echo, like divings, but it's his voice. So it has like a little bit of a Middle Eastern vibe, but it also sounds like strange.
So cool. So
you like to use a lot of modulation. I've noticed in your music. What do you get from that? You think
movement?
Okay.
Things changing, evolving. I don't like static.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes I do too much of that because it's like
my mix
so many
work,
things.
I like things to move around a lot. So I'm always using some part of modulation.
If you have like an open world game like Assassin's Creed, that requires different stuff from Sarah than a first person shooter, or is it kind of the same? Because open world, it's
so much bigger.
It's bigger, right? And your imagination you have to go nuts.
Oh my God. You have to like rip your brain inside out.
I bet.
Because I mean, sometimes I'll just have a couple videos to go by and I'm writing for like 50 different side missions.
Oh God.
And so that's one of the biggest differences. And people are always asking me, what's the difference between scoring film and games? But one of the biggest challenges is that you don't get those dailies every day with these amazing actors and the script that and you know exactly what you're writing to.
Right.
On the game, it's like, it's all you have to pull it out of your head.
There's no guardrails.
No, it's all you.
Because you already, when I did research on you, you already seem like a mad scientist inside your lair creating Sarah World, right? That's
insane.
It's like chaos theory.
Chaos.
But that's where I think the brilliance comes in because obviously, one, it works. And two, there's enough discipline in your method that by the time it gets to the end, it's something that supports the story and furthers the story.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's always the primary focus. I mean, I don't feel like I have to work too hard to make things sound like me. Like when I try to sound like other people, it still just sounds like me. So I guess that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Are you ever charged with, let me backtrack. Seems like everything in life is about tension and release. So I'm assuming that that's still a process in the video game world. And if so, what techniques do you use to create tension and release in your music? Is it similar to the way we do it in a song? Like in a song, we would pre-chorus, we would pedal a sus4 or put some like odd time signatures to create tension. Is that something you're sometimes charged with to create an emotion within a song?
Yeah, for sure.
Within a game?
For sure.
What's your technique for that?
I think, with games, because the music is not narrative, you're not, there's not constant changing of chords and melodies because that can't loop and that would get really annoying while you're playing. So I think it's just messing with dissonances and getting comfortable with things sounding uncomfortable and hanging out on like a weird dissonant chord for a period of time.
A little bit similar to
I think it's similar.
And you said loops. How long is an average loop? usually like 30 seconds, 10 seconds?
Well, it depends because it depends what the person's doing. They'll have like pre-made edited loops of things, and then they can adjust the mix. So like, oh, if this is played 2 times in a row, now we drop out this layer just to give it a little variation. But it all depends on what the player's doing. If someone's really bad and just like in a wall, facing a wall and like can't get past one mission, they're going to be hearing those loops a lot more than someone that just sped through.
There comes your tension right there automatically.
Yeah.